Okay. Show me.
Hi there guys, welcome back to the ST channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, the Italian job, huh? Yeah, what is up with that? You've seen the title of this video. Well, you might be familiar with cars, right? A lot of people are, and for instance, Italian cars have a certain design philosophy, and I'm talking performance cars like Ferraris and Lamborghinis, whereas American sports cars have a totally different design philosophy. Italians usually go with light, Americans go with big honking V8s and blah blah blah, heavier cars. And I actually could have called this video the English job, because English cars, performance cars, especially older ones, tend to be even lighter, the MGs and such. Or I could have gone with the Japanese job. Japanese cars are, well, mostly smaller than American cars. And that's basically all just a product of the markets they make the cars for, of course. For instance, if you know England, twisty roads, narrow twisty roads, so you want a light sports car. Anyway, what does that have to do with a quadcopter you see here? This is the LDARC 200GT, or KingKong 200GT. And it is a 5-inch quadcopter. But its design philosophy is completely different compared to other 5-inch quadcopters. And in this video I'll hope to be able to explain to you why this might be a good idea, why this is an interesting idea, and why you should take note. Okay, here we go. So, I actually did a video on this quadcopter a couple of weeks ago when it was on offer. And I told you I had ordered one, and actually I was contemplating ordering a second one. And by now I actually have two of these. Yeah, in a second you'll see the second one. Okay, so, and on top of that, last year I think, or was it the year before, I built me a Gap RC AX4, so a 4-inch quadcopter, and on that build I also used smaller motors than usual. And my idea in that build was to make a nimble, light quadcopter that could fly, also fly longer on a LiPo, which actually worked out pretty well. It was a very nimble quadcopter, that AX4. Okay, so light versus powerful. I myself have built 5-inch quadcopters, and usually we go with powerhouses, yeah, to get the job done. And if you've built quadcopters like that, or maybe flown RTFs, you know that you also need to order up some powerful LiPos, and even then flight times won't be very long. And well, if you've got that all figured out, the performance will be nice too. However, yeah, this LDARC, the 200GT FPV egg, which is a bit of an unfortunate name I think, but well, who cares? Completely different setup, and I think it's, well, daring. Well, yeah, might be a bit daring from LDARC to go with something completely different. At first glance, if you take a look at the specifications of this quadcopter, you will probably think, well, what, man, that's not gonna perform at all. Nah, that's not, well, the price might make you interested, because it's very affordable. But if you take a look at the specifications, puny little motors, what gives, man? Let's buy ourselves an Emax Hawk 5 and be done with it, right? Yeah, and you could, and you'd have a very nice quadcopter. If a quadcopter with this concept would have been brought to market by, for instance, Diatone, people would probably have looked at it differently. But well, LDARC, smaller company, yeah, most people will just think that's one big mistake. But I think, and well, that's why I ordered 2 of them, I think this is an interesting concept. The entire quadcopter, not just the motors, are built so that this quadcopter is light and therefore it performs well. I have only hovered it, by the way, up to now, but I have of course done my homework. A lot of people like this quadcopter, so it's definitely not a complete fail. And again, the price is low, so yeah, maybe you should take a look at it. Maybe order one because they are inexpensive, just to see if you like this concept. A light quadcopter, that's all well and good, but how did they make a light 5-inch quadcopter, you say? Well, from the outside in, as mentioned, they use smaller motors, which are obviously lighter. This entire midsection, at first glance it just looks like an aluminium case, which you've seen on other quadcopters, but it's very small, it's very narrow, and it's not that high. Actually, this is more or less the cage from a 3-inch quadcopter. Actually, I have a 3-inch quadcopter here, and it won't be easy to show you the size difference, but on the LDARC this thing is actually lower than on this Gap RC MX3. This, can I show that to you? Let's try. Nah, not really. But the cage is exactly the same width as on the MX3. So that in itself makes this quadcopter lighter. Also, you see a FPV camera over here, right? Which is a micro FPV camera. It is actually a genuine Runcam micro Swift, which is at this price point very nice, I think. But yeah, and a 5-inch quadcopter, generally you'd see a full-inch FPV camera, right? So that saves weight. Also, this stack you see over here is the same size as in a 3-inch quadcopter. So what is this, 20 by 20 probably? Yeah, I'd say. It has a 4-in-1 ESC and a flight controller, and yeah, it does have a VTX, but that's mounted at the bottom over here. Okay, I'm not gonna bore you with all the specifications of this quadcopter. There is a link in the description to it. Have a look and see what the specifications of it are. The gist of it, or what it makes it an interesting quadcopter to me, is that Runcam FPV camera, which is very nice, an f4 with OSD flight controller, and yeah, its weight. The weight is its primary selling point. Now, LDARC sell this as a long flight time quadcopter. Maybe, I think you could do well on a technical course with this quadcopter because it's very light. On a high speed course, probably not. It is an 4S quadcopter. So yeah, by the way, this power cord is unusually long. Yeah, okay. By the way, this power cord is tied down to the frame, which is something you don't see on a lot of quadcopters. Very, very nice. And now that I'm mentioning it, let's see what comes with this quadcopter. Alright, like a lot of LDARC quadcopters, it comes in this lunchbox, which is pretty nice. And yes, the quadcopter does fit in there. However, it doesn't fit in there with the props on. So in reality, you'd probably end up using this lunchbox for something else. Maybe you have 3-inch quadcopters which will fit in there. So, well, It's a pretty nice box, but again, the quad doesn't fit in there with the props on. It comes with 2.5, I think, sets of propellers. I'm not sure why it's not 2 or 3, but 2.5 sets of propellers. So plenty of spares, and yeah, I don't really know if these propellers will perform well. They look a little bit like HQ props, which I'm sure they are not. But in my flight videos I will be using these propellers until I'm fed up with them. I really don't know if they will perform well. We'll see. They do have a slightly shallower pitch, as you might have seen in the specifications. 50-40. So yeah, I guess with the smaller motors you don't want to overload these motors. That also makes it well, maybe more a freestyle quadcopter than a racer, but we will see. I haven't flown it much, as I mentioned. It comes with some arm protectors or motor protectors, which you can optionally put on your quadcopter. I won't, because I want to keep it light, but well, they're there. You get a bunch of zip ties, which is very nice to, for instance, secure your antenna onto. And you got some rubber bands, which I have no idea what they are there for. The KingKong ET series of quadcopters also came with these rubber bands to strap down your LiPo. But I have no idea how to how you'd be able to install them. Alright, some rubber pads. I again don't know why. Maybe the idea is to put that on your LiPo so they don't slip out of the quad. You get actually 2 sets of receiver wires, which you will solder onto your receiver, and they are clearly labeled. And that's very nice. And you get 1 battery strap, which is crappy. Yeah, it isn't anti-slip or anything. I won't be using it. And you also get a manual with this quadcopter, which is actually pretty nice for all kinds of receivers. It shows you how to install them, configure Betaflight and such. And it's in English and Chinese, Chinglish of course, but it's clear enough. This manual will get you started. Alright, this is actually the second one, my second T-200GT. I have to say, these propellers do look very nice. I'm pretty sure you'd agree. In flight they also look very, very nice. And yeah, you don't get an action camera with the quadcopter obviously, but well, here's an example of a camera mounted on this quadcopter. So yeah, you can mount an action camera on it. This is a very small one, the Firefly. Can you run a GoPro on this quadcopter? Yeah, well, probably, maybe, but well, then you didn't really understand the concept of this quadcopter in my mind. Let's see, yeah, one more thing that was really missing in this kit, and that's missing in a lot of quadcopter kits, is some shrink tube to tie down your antenna. Actually, now that I mention an antenna, I had ordered me an XSR receiver for this quadcopter. However, it doesn't have UARTs. Well, it has UART, but it doesn't expose them to soldering tabs. So yeah, basically you don't have UARTs in this quadcopter, and therefore no telemetry. That's a bit of an unfortunate thing, of course. What you also don't have is smart audio. Yeah, that KingKong / LDARC. Smart audio is kinda something we nowadays demand of our quadcopters. And at the bottom, yeah, I've used a different strap, as you can see. Again, the supplied strap, no, it's not a very good strap. Also, the firmware on the flight controller was a bit old. I'm not completely sure. 3.2.7 I think, which is not ancient, but I've updated it to 3.3.3 by now, and that should be just fine. Alright, so it is a 4S quadcopter, or at least it can be run on 4S. You can probably run it on 3S as well. I won't, but it'll probably fly just fine. I'll be running it on these Hyperion G7 high voltage 90C. I could probably run a lower C rating, but this is what I have. 1200 milliamp 4S. 1200 milliamp is a little bit on the big side for this quadcopter, but these Hyperion packs have a higher energy density than most other lipos. So this one weighs less than say a Turnigy 1200, for instance. Yeah, and they are kind of expensive. Maybe I'll go and order me some 75Cs, because I expect the amp draw of these quadcopters to be very low. 90C is probably not necessary, so I could save some additional weight with a lower C lipo. And that is basically it for my first look at these quadcopters. By the way, one of the reasons why I ordered two of them is to enable myself to compare, for instance, firmwares. Betaflight versus Butterflight and such. Or maybe install a different FPV camera in one and compare the two. Things like that. So yeah, you tell me actually, what are your thoughts on this concept? Not just these quadcopters, but the entire idea of making a racer or a freestyle quadcopter lighter than we're used to in this community. I'd be interested to see what you think. Alright, again, that's it for me, and if you have any questions, hit me up a comment down below. Again, I'd be very interested to see what your thoughts on this idea are. And in the very near future, I'll obviously do flight videos with these quadcopters. Catch you on the next video. Bye bye.